Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora and watched the stars stretch into lines as they dropped out of quantum-fold space. The ship hummed quietly around him as systems came back online after their first jump beyond the solar system. After 300 years of dreaming about this moment, humanity had finally reached the stars. "Jump complete, Captain," called out Commander Tony Blake from his station. "We are now in the Kepler 442 system." Jake nodded and looked at the main screen where their destination appeared. 3 planets orbited a yellow star, much like Earth's sun. The second planet showed signs of water and atmosphere. It would be humanity's first real chance to study an Earth-like world up close. "Dr. Carter, what are your readings?" Jake asked. "DR?" Lisa Carter looked up from her science station with excitement in her eyes. "The planet looks perfect, Captain. Water oceans, oxygen atmosphere, even plant life on the surface. But there's something else out there." She pressed some buttons, and the main screen changed to show a strange object floating in space near the third planet. It looked like a giant crystal the size of a small moon. The surface was perfectly smooth and reflected starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "What is that thing?" Tony asked. "I don't know," Lisa said. "It's made of materials that don't exist on any periodic table I know. The structure is too perfect to be natural." Chief Engineer Kate Williams spoke up from her station. "Captain, that object is giving off some kind of energy field. It's not harmful, but it's definitely artificial." Jake felt his heart racing. This was what every explorer dreamed of finding. Evidence of alien life. "Can we get closer, Kate?" "Yes, sir." "The energy field actually seems to be some kind of beacon, like it wants us to approach." Jake gave the order, and the Aurora moved toward the crystal structure. As they got closer, the object began to glow brighter. Patterns of light moved across its surface like living circuits. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot out from the crystal and surrounded their ship. The bridge filled with a humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The air shimmered, and suddenly they were not alone. 3 beings made of pure light stood before them, contained within crystal shells that looked like the structure outside. Jake's hand moved toward his weapon, but stopped when one of the beings spoke directly into his mind. "Greetings, humans. We are the architects. We have been waiting for you." The voice was calm, but carried a weight that made Jake feel very small. Lisa stepped forward with her scanner raised, but the device showed nothing but static. "Who are you?" Jake managed to ask. "We are the builders of all you see around you," the being said. "Every star, every planet, every force that holds the universe together was designed and built by our kind over billions of years." Tony laughed nervously. "That's impossible. The universe formed naturally from the Big Bang," the 3 beings seemed to find this amusing. "The event you call the Big Bang was our construction project beginning. We came to this empty space and built everything you know as reality." Lisa's scientific mind struggled with what she was hearing. "But the laws of physics, the way matter behaves, evolution on Earth, all designed by us," the lead being said. "The laws you discovered were instruction manuals we left behind. Your evolution was guided to produce beings capable of maintaining specific systems." Kate stepped forward. "Maintaining what systems?" "The universe requires constant upkeep. Human stars must be kept in proper orbits. Gravity fields need adjustment. Quantum forces require calibration. Your species was developed to serve as maintenance workers for Sector 7749 Delta, which includes your solar system and 47 others." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "You're saying humans were created to be your janitors, maintenance?" "Technicians would be more accurate," the being replied. "Many species throughout the galaxy serve similar functions. The Zephyrians maintain nebula formations. The crystalline entities regulate planetary atmospheres. The silicon builders repaired damaged space-time. What happened to them? Lisa asked quietly. The architects seemed to pause before answering. 3 species in the past asked questions beyond their assigned parameters. They were decommissioned, and their sectors reassigned to other workers. The word decommissioned hung in the air like a threat. Jake felt his crew's fear, but also their anger. Humans had always been explorers and questioners. The idea of being locked into one job forever felt wrong. What kind of questions? Jake asked. Questions about the time before construction. Questions about our methods. Questions about whether our design could be improved. The lead architect's energy patterns shifted to a darker color. Such questions lead to dangerous thinking and must be prevented. Lisa couldn't help herself. But scientific curiosity is what makes us human. How can you ask us to stop asking questions? You will learn to focus your curiosity on approved subjects. D.R. Carter. Your species shows unusual persistence in asking inappropriate questions. This trait must be controlled before it leads to the same fate as the others. The 3 beings began to fade as their light beam prepared to withdraw. You have 7 standard days to return to Earth and inform your leaders of their new role. Architect supervisors will arrive to begin training your maintenance teams. Any resistance will result in immediate decommissioning. As the beings disappeared, Jake felt the ship shake slightly. When the light beam ended, they were alone again with only the silent crystal structure outside their windows. Tony was the first to speak. Captain, did they just threaten to wipe out humanity if we don't become their servants? That's exactly what they did. Jake replied grimly. Lisa was studying her readings frantically. Captain, I'm detecting quantum signatures from their technology that don't match what they told us. These readings suggest what Leza suggests they didn't build everything from scratch. There are traces of much older technology mixed in with theirs. Technology that predates their construction project by billions of years. Kate looked up from her engineering station. Captain, I hate to interrupt, but we have a problem. That energy beam they used did something to our quantum fold drive. We can't jump back to Earth. Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. His crew was stranded in an alien star system, threatened by beings who claimed to own the universe, and possibly holding evidence that those beings were lying about their origins. All right, people, we're stuck here until Kate can fix the drive. Lisa, I want you to scan everything you can about that structure and gather all the data possible. Tony, set us up defensive positions just in case. Kate, work on getting us home. As his crew went to work, Jake stared out at the crystal structure, floating in space. Something about the architects didn't add up. Their threat felt less like confidence and more like fear. But fear of what? 3 weeks had passed since the Aurora made it back to Earth. The world's governments worked quickly to sign the Universal Maintenance Accord after the architects made their demands clear by temporarily shutting down the sun for 6 hours. No. One wanted to test whether the aliens were bluffing about decommissioning humanity. Dr. Lisa Carter stood in the new cosmic maintenance facility built in orbit around Mars. She watched human technicians work alongside architect supervisors to learn how to adjust the gravitational fields that kept Earth's solar system stable. The work was complex, but the humans were learning fast. The harmonic resonance must be precisely calibrated, explained the architect supervisor known as Constructor Unit 47. Its crystalline form pulsed with blue light as it demonstrated the proper technique. Any deviation from approved frequencies will destabilize planetary orbits. Lisa nodded and made notes on her tablet. She had been assigned to lead the human maintenance team for their local star system. The work was fascinating from a scientific perspective, but something bothered her about the whole operation. Constructor 47, I have a question about the gravitational anchors we installed yesterday. The architect's light dimmed slightly. Proceed with your question, Dr. Carter, but remember that inquiries must remain within approved parameters. Of course. I noticed some unusual quantum signatures in the anchor points. They seem to contain traces of technology that uses different construction principles than your current methods. The architect was silent for several long seconds. Explain what you observed. Lisa pulled up her scans on the workstation screen. Here in sections 7 through 12, the quantum foam shows microscopic structures that predate your construction timeline. They're built using natural quantum entanglement rather than forced matrix alignment. Constructor 47's energy patterns shifted to orange. You are mistaken, Dr. Carter. No technology predates architect construction. Your instruments must be malfunctioning. But Lisa had checked her instruments 3 times. The readings were accurate. Perhaps I could examine more anchor points to verify. That will not be necessary. Focus on learning approved maintenance procedures only. Lisa spent the rest of the shift following orders, but her mind kept returning to those strange readings. During her break, she sent an encrypted message to her colleague Dr. Ben Rodriguez, who was working on maintenance systems around Jupiter. The reply came back within hours. Lisa, I found the same thing here. The quantum signatures don't match current architect technology. I also discovered something else. The mathematical patterns in cosmic background radiation show evidence of natural evolution rather than engineered design. Lisa felt her pulse quicken. If Ben was seeing the same anomalies, it meant her discovery wasn't isolated. She began reaching out to other human maintenance teams across the solar system. The responses she got back were shocking. Chief Technician Amy Johnson reported finding natural stellar formation patterns that contradicted architect construction claims. Engineer Paul Davis discovered quantum signatures in dark matter networks. That suggested organic development over billions of years. Maintenance specialist Carol White found evidence of naturally evolved life in supposedly sterile systems that had been marked as architect industrial zones. All the evidence pointed to the same impossible conclusion. The universe the architects claimed to have built from scratch had actually evolved naturally. Their construction project wasn't creation, but conquest. Lisa knew she was treading dangerous ground. The architects had made it clear that asking the wrong questions could lead to humanity's extinction. But her scientific training wouldn't let her ignore the evidence. She began secretly compiling data from all the human teams, building a picture of what the universe looked like before the architects arrived. The results were stunning. Hidden beneath the architects' controlled systems were the remnants of a universe that had developed organically. Natural galaxies that had been dismantled and rebuilt according to alien specifications. Planetary systems that had been stripped of their original life and converted to industrial purposes. Even the fundamental forces showed signs of artificial modification to serve architect needs. 2 months into the maintenance program, Lisa finally worked up the courage to confront Constructor 47 with her findings. She chose her moment carefully, waiting until they were alone in the gravitational monitoring station. Constructor 47, I need to ask you about something important. The architect's crystal form rotated to face her. Proceed, Dr. Carter. Lisa took a deep breath. All the evidence I've gathered suggests that you didn't build the universe from nothing. It looks like you conquered an existing universe and rebuilt it according to your designs. The quantum signatures, the background radiation, patterns, the remnants of natural evolution, all point to the same conclusion. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Constructor 47's energy patterns flashed from blue to deep red. The air around Lisa began to vibrate with a sound like breaking glass. Other architect supervisors throughout the facility suddenly stopped what they were doing and turned toward their location. How did you discover information that was properly disposed of eons ago? Constructor 47 demanded. Its voice had lost all pretense of friendliness. This knowledge was eliminated from all accessible data sources. Lisa felt fear creeping up her spine, but pressed on. The evidence is still there, if you know how to look for it. You can't completely erase billions of years of natural development. We eliminated 3 entire species for asking similar questions, Dr. Carter. Do you wish humanity to join them? I just want to understand the truth. The truth is what we have told you. We built this universe. We maintain it. Lesser species serve our purposes. That is all you need to know, but Lisa could see something in the architect's energy patterns that she hadn't noticed before. Fear. Constructor 47 wasn't angry that she had asked the wrong question. It was afraid of what she might discover if she kept asking. What are you so afraid of? Lisa asked quietly. The architect's form began to pulse more rapidly. Maintenance operations in this sector are suspended immediately. All human workers report to processing stations for cognitive adjustment procedures. Alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Lisa realized that her question had triggered some kind of emergency protocol. Through the station windows, she could see architect ships emerging from fold space throughout the solar system. Cognitive adjustment procedures, Lisa asked. Memory modification to remove dangerous thoughts from your neural patterns. Humanity has shown excessive curiosity about prohibited subjects. This trait must be corrected before it spreads further. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. The architects weren't just going to punish her for asking questions. They were going to lobotomize the entire human race to prevent anyone else from asking similar questions. She activated her emergency communicator and sent a coded message to all human maintenance teams. Question everything. Trust nothing. They're afraid of what we might learn. Constructor 47 lunged toward her, but Lisa was already moving. She ran through the station corridors as architect energy beams scorched the walls behind her. Behind her, she could hear the alien being calling for security reinforcements. Lisa reached the emergency escape pods just as her communicator crackled with responses from human teams across the solar system. Ben Rodriguez reported architect ships surrounding Jupiter. Amy Johnson said they were evacuating maintenance crews from the asteroid belt. Paul Davis transmitted that his entire team was being rounded up for the cognitive adjustment procedures. As Lisa launched her escape pod toward the inner system, she watched the architect fleet moving into position around Earth. Through her scanner, she detected something that made her heart sink. Energy readings consistent with planetary sterilization weapons. The architects weren't just planning to adjust human memory. They were preparing to wipe out anyone who had heard her dangerous questions, just like they had done to the 3 previous species who had asked similar questions about the universe's true origins. Lisa set course for the outer system, where hopefully some human ships might have escaped the initial roundup. As her pod accelerated away from Mars, she realized that her simple question about quantum signatures had just started a war between humanity and the beings who claimed to own the universe. But she also realized something else. The architects' fear meant they were hiding something much bigger than she had imagined. Something that would explain not just how the universe was really made, but who had made it before the architects arrived to steal it. Captain Jake Morrison watched the Centauri 7 colony disappear from his scanner display. 200,000 humans had been living there, working on gravitational maintenance for the Alpha Centauri system. Now there was nothing left but empty space and scattered atoms. Confirmed, Captain. Tony Blake reported from his station aboard the Aurora. The entire system has been sterilized. No survivors. Jake felt sick. 3 days ago, Centauri 7 had been humanity's proudest achievement outside the solar system. A thriving colony where humans were building new lives among the stars. The architects had destroyed it in less than 10 minutes, claiming it was a necessary calibration to prevent systemic contamination. The Aurora hung hidden in the Horsehead Nebula, one of the few places where architect scanners couldn't penetrate. The dense gas clouds. Jake's ship had managed to escape the initial roundup when Lisa Carter's warning message triggered emergency protocols. Now they were among the last free humans in the galaxy. How many other ships made it out? Jake asked. Kate Williams looked up from her engineering station. I'm reading 17 human vessels scattered across different hiding spots. Maybe 3,000 people total. Everyone else was either captured for cognitive adjustment or she didn't need to finish the sentence. Jake knew what happened to humans who resisted the architect's memory modification procedures. The same thing that happened to Centauri 7. Captain, I'm getting a transmission from Dr. Carter, Tony announced. Lisa's face appeared on the main screen. She was aboard the research vessel Newton, hiding in the outer system beyond Pluto. Her eyes looked exhausted but determined. Jake, I've been analyzing all the data we collected from the maintenance operations. What I found changes everything we thought we knew about the architects. What did you discover, Lisa? They didn't create the universe. They invaded it. Everything they told us was a lie designed to hide the truth about what they really are. Jake leaned forward. Explain. Lisa pulled up holographic displays showing quantum analysis data. The evidence is overwhelming once you know how to look for it. The universe evolved naturally for billions of years before the architects arrived. There were indigenous civilizations, organic development of physical laws, natural stellar formation. The architects came here as refugees from somewhere else and systematically destroyed everything original. Refugees from where? Kate asked. A dying universe. Based on the quantum signatures in their technology, I believe the architects fled the collapse of their home reality and decided to rebuild ours according to their specifications. They didn't create the fundamental forces. They hijacked them and repurposed them for their own needs. Tony shook his head. But what about all the other species they said were working as maintenance crews? I think they were all indigenous to this universe originally. The architects conquered them one by one, modified their genetics to make them docile, and put them to work maintaining the systems they built on top of the original reality. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Lisa, are you saying humanity evolved naturally in the original universe? Yes. Earth developed organically before the architects took control of this sector. We're probably one of the last species that retained our original nature because we evolved on a world they considered unimportant. Dr. Ben Rodriguez appeared on the communication channel from his hiding spot near Saturn. Lisa's right, Captain. I've been analyzing the quantum foam patterns around Earth. There are traces of the original universe's structure still hidden beneath the architect modifications. It's like they built their controlled reality on top of the natural one without completely destroying it. Lisa nodded. That's exactly what they did, Ben. And I know why they're so afraid of us asking questions about it. She activated another holographic display showing complex mathematical models. The original universe is still there underneath there. Construction. It's been dormant for billions of years, but it's not dead. Every time we discover evidence of the original reality, we're actually waking it up. Jake stared at the display. What do you mean, waking it up? The universe wants to return to its natural state, Captain. The architect's control isn't absolute. It requires constant maintenance because reality itself is fighting against their artificial modifications. When humans started asking the right questions, we began helping the universe remember what it used to be. Amy Johnson's voice crackled over the communication system from her position near Jupiter. That would explain why they panicked when Lisa discovered the pre-construction quantum signatures. We weren't just finding evidence of their lies. We were accidentally starting to undo their work. How is that possible? Tony asked. Lisa smiled. For the first time since the crisis began. Because consciousness affects quantum reality at the fundamental level. When we observe the original universe's patterns and question the architect's version of events, we're actually reinforcing the natural state and weakening their artificial control. Kate looked up from her engineering console. Captain, I'm detecting some unusual readings from the nebula around us. The gas patterns are shifting into more organized structures. What kind of structures, Kate? I'm not sure, sir. They look almost like circuit patterns, but made of ionized gas instead of metal. Lisa's eyes widened. Captain, get your ship out of there immediately. What Kate is seeing might be the original universe trying to communicate. But before Jake could give the order to move, the Aurora was surrounded by streams of glowing gas that formed complex geometric patterns around their hull. The bridge filled with a humming sound that was somehow different from the architect's invasive mental contact. Instead of forcing thoughts into their minds, the presence seemed to be asking permission to communicate. Jake felt a gentle, questioning touch against his consciousness, waiting for him to decide whether to allow contact. Captain, Lisa said urgently over the communication channel, I think you're about to meet the universe's original inhabitants. Jake looked at his crew. Tony nodded grimly. Kate gave him a thumbs up. They had already lost everything to the architects. What did they have left to lose? Open communication. Jake said the humming sound changed to something that felt like welcome mixed with gratitude. Ancient voices whispered in their minds, speaking thoughts that were billions of years old. We are the primordials. We have been waiting so long for someone to ask the right questions. The presence felt warm and familiar, like coming home after a long journey. Nothing like the cold authority of the architects. We were the universe's first children. We learned to work with natural forces instead of trying to control them. When the architects invaded, we chose to hide rather than fight, preserving ourselves and the original blueprint in quantum storage. Jake found his voice. How long have you been waiting? Since the architects began their construction project 13.7 billion years ago. We knew that eventually a species would evolve that retained the curiosity to question imposed reality and the courage to challenge seemingly omnipotent powers. Lisa's voice came over the communicator, filled with wonder. The quantum signatures I found weren't just remnants of old technology. They were you, waiting for us to find you. Yes, Dr. Carter. Humanity is the first species to develop under architect control while keeping the ability to think original thoughts. Every other species was either eliminated during the invasion or genetically modified to accept authority without question. Tony leaned forward. Can you help us fight the architects? The primordial presence seemed to smile, though they had no physical form. We can do better than that, Commander Blake. We can teach you to restore the universe to its original state. But first, you must understand what you are truly fighting for. The nebula around them began to shift and change, showing them visions of what the universe looked like before the architects arrived. Galaxies that danced instead of marching in. Rigid formations. Stars that sang with natural harmonies. Planets where life evolved in ways the architects never imagined. It was beautiful beyond anything humanity had ever seen. And it was their true heritage, stolen billions of years ago by refugees who chose conquest over cooperation. This is what we can restore together, the primordials whispered. But it will require humans to do more than fight the architects. You must help the universe remember how to be itself again. Lisa Carter felt the universe flowing through her mind like music she had never heard before. The primordial entity, known as First Singer, was teaching her to see reality as it truly existed beneath the architect's modifications. What she discovered made her understand why the aliens had been so desperate to prevent humans from asking questions. Feel the quantum foam, Dr. Carter, First Singer whispered in her thoughts. See how it wants to dance instead of march in rigid patterns. Lisa extended her consciousness into the space around the Newton research vessel. Instead of the cold mechanical structures the architects had imposed, She could sense warm currents of possibility flowing through every atom. The universe wasn't dead matter following programmed instructions. It was alive and dreaming of freedom. "I can feel it," Lisa said with wonder. "Reality is fighting against their control. It has been fighting for 13.7 billion years," First Singer replied. "But it needed conscious observers who could see the original patterns to help it remember how to be natural again." Across the solar system, other human survivors were having similar experiences. Ben Rodriguez was learning to work with gravitational fields by asking them what they wanted to do instead of forcing them into artificial configurations. The results were remarkable. Stars began burning more efficiently and beautifully as their natural fusion processes were restored. Amy Johnson discovered that she could awaken dormant life potential in supposedly sterile asteroid fields. Within hours of her first attempt, the Space Orcs began showing signs of primitive organic chemistry that the architects had suppressed for eons. Kate Williams found that she could repair the Aurora's damaged quantum fold drive by harmonizing with the universe's original dimensional framework instead of fighting against it. The ship's engines began running more smoothly than they ever had under architect-designed physics. But the awakening of primordial knowledge came with a price. Every time humans restored a piece of the original universe, the architects detected the change and responded with increasing violence. Captain Jake Morrison watched through his ship's sensors as constructor unit 12 led a fleet of architect vessels toward the Horsehead Nebula where the Aurora was hidden. The alien ships moved in perfect geometric formations, their energy weapons charged and ready to sterilize anything that showed signs of original universal patterns. "They're adapting their tactics, Captain," Tony Blake reported. "Instead of trying to capture us for cognitive adjustment, they're moving straight to elimination protocols." Jake nodded grimly. The architects had realized that humans couldn't be controlled the way other species had been. The only solution from their perspective was complete extinction. "All human vessels, this is Captain Morrison," Jake broadcast on the emergency frequency. "The architects are mobilizing their full construction fleets. They're going to try to wipe us out before we can restore any more of the original universe." Lisa's voice crackled over the communication system. "Jake, the primordials are offering to teach us defensive techniques, but it requires accepting their knowledge completely. Once we do this, there's no going back to being ordinary humans." "What do you mean, Lisa?" "We'll become something new, part human, part universal consciousness. We'll be able to work with reality at the quantum level, but we won't be entirely the same species we were before." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Tony met his eyes and nodded. Kate gave him a determined smile. They had already lost their home, their civilization, and most of their species. The choice was between evolution or extinction. "Do it, Lisa. Whatever it takes to save what's left of humanity and restore the universe to its natural state." The change began immediately. Jake felt his consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of his physical body. He could suddenly perceive the quantum substrate that underlied all reality. The architect's modifications looked like ugly scars across the face of creation, held in place only by constant technological pressure. But more importantly, he could see the original universe's patterns still intact underneath the artificial control systems. It was like discovering a beautiful painting hidden beneath layers of crude paint. All it needed was someone willing to carefully remove the false additions to reveal the masterpiece underneath. The restoration process must be coordinated, First Singer explained to all the human survivors simultaneously. If too many systems had returned to natural state too quickly, the resulting cascade could collapse both versions of reality. Paul Davis, working near the outer planets, began the first major restoration attempt. He focused on a small cluster of asteroids that the architects had converted into raw material storage. Instead of dismantling their control systems by force, He asked the asteroids what they had been before the invasion. The response was immediate and beautiful. The space rocks began reshaping themselves into the complex crystalline structures they had developed over billions of years of natural evolution. But more importantly, they began broadcasting quantum signals that awakened similar restoration processes in neighboring systems. "It's working," Paul reported excitedly. "The original patterns are spreading on their own once I help them remember." But the success attracted immediate retaliation. A squadron of architect ships arrived in Paul's location within minutes. Jake watched through the quantum connection as energy beams lanced out toward the human engineer. The beams never reached their target. The restored asteroids moved to intercept the weapons, their crystalline structures absorbing and redirecting the energy back at the attacking ships. For the first time since the crisis began, human forces had successfully defended against Architect technology. "The universe is fighting back," Tony said with amazement. "No," Lisa corrected him from her position near Saturn. "The universe is remembering how to defend itself. We're just helping it wake up," the pattern repeated across the solar system as more humans learned to work with primordial knowledge. Each successful restoration made the next one easier as the original universe's consciousness grew stronger. Planets began breaking free from artificially imposed orbits to find paths that felt more natural. Stars started singing in harmonious frequencies instead of the mechanical rhythms the architects had programmed. But Jake could see that their success was creating an even bigger problem. Through his expanded consciousness, he detected massive architect fleets converging on Earth from across the galaxy. Hundreds of constructor units leading millions of ships, all focused on preventing the restoration cascade from spreading beyond the solar system. "Captain," Amy Johnson called from her position near Jupiter, "I'm reading architect reinforcements coming out of fold space. They're bringing enough firepower to crack planets." Jake realized they were facing the final confrontation. The architects were no longer trying to control or modify humanity. They were coming to destroy the entire solar system to prevent the original universe from awakening anywhere else. "All human units, prepare for the ultimate battle," Jake broadcast. "We're not just fighting for our survival anymore. We're fighting for the right of the universe itself to exist in its natural state." Through the quantum connection, he felt the primordials gathering their own forces. Ancient consciousnesses that had been hiding in quantum foam for billions of years began emerging from their long slumber. The universe's original children were finally ready to reclaim their home. But as Jake watched the approaching architect fleets, he wondered if humanity and their primordial allies would be strong enough to win a war against beings who had controlled reality itself for over 13 billion years. The answer would determine not just the fate of humanity, but whether the universe would remain a sterile machine or return to being a living, growing entity capable of unlimited possibility. The final battle for the soul of creation was about to begin. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora as reality twisted around them. The final battle was taking place at the Architect's Central Command Nexus, a massive structure built around the universe's original core, the quantum heart, from which all natural physical laws had once flowed, was now a prisoner, forced to serve as a computational engine for alien control systems. "Captain, the reality weapons are tearing holes in space itself," Tony Blake reported as architect. "Forces launched another assault. They're literally rewriting the laws of physics to turn the vacuum against us." Jake watched through his enhanced consciousness as space folded and twisted under the aliens' attack. Where their weapons struck, gravity flowed backward and matter dissolved into component quarks. But the human and primordial forces had learned to work with the universe's desire for natural order, instead of fighting against distorted physics. "Don't resist the distortions," Dr. Lisa Carter broadcast from her position near the Nexus core. Ask the universe what it wants to be, instead of what the architects are forcing it to become. Lisa had become something far beyond ordinary human during their journey to this place. Her consciousness flowed through quantum foam like music, helping restore natural patterns wherever the architect's weapons tried to impose artificial chaos. Around her, space began healing itself as the original universe remembered how to exist. Strategy was working, but at a terrible cost. Half the human survivors had been lost in the assault on the Nexus. Ben Rodriguez had sacrificed himself to restore an entire stellar cluster to natural function, allowing primordial forces to establish a foothold in the architect's stronghold. Amy Johnson had given her life to awaken the consciousness trapped in the Nexus core, beginning the process of cosmic liberation. "The universe is responding, Captain," Kate Williams called from her engineering station. "I'm reading cascade failures throughout the architect control network. Their forced physics modifications are collapsing as natural laws reassert themselves. Through the quantum connection, Jake could feel the universe's original consciousness stirring from its billions of years of imprisonment. It was like watching a giant wake up from the deepest possible sleep, ancient and vast beyond human comprehension, but also curious and gentle in ways the architects had never been. "Why do you fight us?" the Nexus core asked through speakers that had never been designed for its voice. "We only sought to bring order to chaos." Jake realized the universe itself was speaking to the architects. For the first time in eons, the original consciousness was strong enough to communicate directly with its captors. "Order imposed through force is not true order," the universe replied to itself, speaking through Lisa's enhanced awareness. "True harmony comes from cooperation, not control, Prime Constructor." Zeph 9 materialized on the bridge of the Aurora in a last desperate attempt to stop the restoration process. Its crystalline form pulsed with angry red energy as it prepared to eliminate Jake and his crew. "Your species will be eliminated for this vandalism," Zeph 9 declared. "We spent 13 billion years perfecting this reality. We will not allow primitives to destroy our greatest achievement." But Jake had learned enough primordial wisdom to see through the architect's threats to the fear underneath. "You're not angry that we're vandalizing your work. You're terrified that we're proving it wasn't necessary." "What do you mean, human? You built your controlled universe because you were fleeing the death of your own natural cosmos. But what if you are?"